You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices.
Hi, everybody. This is Chad Johnson. As you just heard, we're talking with Sara Hansen, and I've got my lovely co-host, Regan Robertson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Chad. I'm really excited for today's podcast. The listeners are going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah, Sara, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so just a little bit of chit chat real quick, and we'll keep it quick, but we were at the workshop together, and you and I went with a couple people to Babe's Chicken Dinner with Brian Turani and the guys. That was amazing, was it not?
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yep. KFC on an authentic, steroids, awesome, batter. It was just really good fried chicken, good meal, good everything. I loved it. Worth the drive. I mean, it was just a few minutes up the road, but if you're ever in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Sara, you agree with me, someone should check that out.
Yes, like that is number one stop. And then we made another stop to Heart 8 Barbecue.
Oh, yes.
Which, can we talk about that too?
Especially if we get some kind of coupon discount later for plugging them. I don't think they'll ever listen. But if you guys are ever going to a Productive Dentist Academy workshop, you should go check out either Babe's Chicken Dinner or Heart 8 Pit Barbecue. So worth checking out. And there's more than one location of each.
Yep. It was amazing.
I think Babe's is more than KFC even. It was the best.
Well, yes.
Fried chicken I've had in my life.
Yes.
And they brought out this platter of fried chicken that was I don't know how many chickens gave their life that night to our table, but it was enormous. And I had my reservations because fried chicken can be really good or it can be a total miss. So Chad brought it to PDA and he was like, everybody, open invitation, come have dinner at Babe's. And oh my gosh, I was in heaven. I ran into the kitchen safely, of course.
Yes.
And gave them
the biscuits.
Oh, the biscuits. Oh, the biscuits. Yeah.
All right. So check it out. At this point, people are going to put it on 2.0 and try and fast forward through this stuff. But really, it's worth mentioning. So if you're ever at the workshop or ever in Dallas-Fort Worth, there's like 4 or 5 locations of each one. Check it out. So Sara, today we wanted to talk about marketing because that's what you do. So how long have you been tailored into the marketing aspect of dentistry? Because I know you go back 20 years into dentistry. So what about the marketing stuff? Like when did that kind of start and when did you perfect your craft?
Well, I think we're always kind of perfecting our craft, right, as we grow and stuff. But for me, it kind of started, I actually worked at a specialty office. It was for 2 endodontists. And it was great because before that, I had only worked in general practices. And so, our marketing strategies and stuff were a little bit different. And when I moved over to that endodontic office and was working for those 2 doctors, we had to put on CE events for clients and for other doctors within the community. And we had to kind of market ourselves, not only to patients, but to other doctors. And so it was a whole new experience for me. And I had the role of the PRC person, the public relations coordinator. And so it was really exciting and fun to learn and to build the relationships within the other practices, within our area and kind of put our name out, but then also learning how to put on events and kind of tailor different things, to help our practice grow. And so that was kind of where it started. And then of course, with every practice that you have, there's marketing involved in grand or small things that you do every day, just even as an employee of a practice. So interesting. Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. Regan, I don't want to steal all the time from you, but I did want to ask Sara, to talk kind of about what marketing means to her. And, you wouldn't mind if I'm just saying, I hate hogging the time, but Sara, tell me, what marketing means to you for offices that you work with now.
So Yeah, so I think, of course, when we think of marketing, I think we always think of the typical, social media and, let's do this campaign and let's get a website and but for me, what I really found is a really critical piece that we don't talk about very often is authentic marketing. And what authentic marketing means to me as a marketing coach is I want my doctors that I work with, I want their patients to know who they are. And I want their patients and their and the staff members who work for them, the team, I want the patients to know who they are. And I think with coming with coming full circle with how that looks in a practice is, Chad, for you, for example, your patients come to you. Yes, they have a service, and yes, you're providing healthcare for them. But at the same time, how many patients do you connect on a personal level? And they know you, they know your family, they know your story, they know what's important to you. Those are lifelong loyal patients. And so I think when we talk about marketing, it's important that when we market, that we are putting ourselves out there. What's our why? How do we connect with people? And so I've noticed even through Facebook or other social media platforms, you have, and some of the doctors that I've worked with in the past, I'll say, okay, we need to identify what makes you, what is unique to your practice. Yes, several dentists can do crowns. Yes, several dentists can do root canals, but what makes you authentic? And one of the doctors I worked for a very long time, he's a big outdoorsman. And so a lot of the posts that we created for him were kind of these outdoor fishing adventures, or he would go on these different, hunting expeditions or whatever. And what it did is it created kind of a platform for who he was. And then it created a base of patients where they understood him and what made him who he was. And so it just created a loyalty and kind of an authenticity to him. But I also feel like along with the doctor, our teams need to be authentic. When a patient walks in the door and they see, let's say Heidi sitting at the front desk, they know her story, they know who she is, they know a little bit about her, and it creates a relationship. And that is what marketing is. You're creating a relationship and an authenticity that allows you to have a connection with somebody.
So on Bruce's podcast, he talks about how you want to link with patients, and it's easier to link naturally if you're advertising, for example, like that dentist does, that he's an outdoorsman, than if you have more of the people that are doing outdoorsman kind of things come into your office. Then you don't have to do a cold start. They can say, oh man, I saw this thing where you were bow hunting on your Facebook. I really like that because I like that myself. And now all of a sudden they're the ones that are hitting it off for you, as opposed to you saying, well, what do you like? And they say crochet, and you go, oh, and you've got these things where there's dissonance, so that's really cool that you're basically bringing in patients that are like you, which makes it easier for you to connect with.
Yes. And when we're talking about a marketing strategy as well, I mean, as well as I do, because you've seen it in your own practice, that your best referral source is patient referrals, right? You have the greatest return on investment with those. Well, those patient referrals come from your current patients being happy, being loyal, all those things that come with that. And that comes with having a connection to the practice. Mm-hmm. And that connection comes based on those relationships. Mm-hmm.
So let's look at some of the data aspects of it. I got into a 2019 poll from Dentaltown magazine and got really excited because one of the things I know you're passionate about, Sara, is not focusing so much on the marketing tactics, but lifting that conversation up. And that's where authenticity plays a major factor for you. In fact, I just had a doctor friend of mine, he's very passionate about his shoes, which is a really weird thing to say, but he took a boomerang and he was like, went to his partner and said, post this on social media. I want people to check out my new shoes. And the partner said, I don't think that's appropriate for a dental Facebook page. I don't want to boomerang anything like that. And there was a little bit of a question about what is the right way to approach that. And so, in poring over this poll, The one well, lots of things stood out to me that made me go down the marketing path, but the one that really popped to the top of my box was 68% of dentists report not having a marketing strategy or campaign. And I wonder, Sara, do you think it's because there's a lot of assumptions in there as to why they don't have it? It could be a one and done thing. Do they think about marketing as a tactic based, this is how I get dentists in, or are they thinking of the bigger picture in building those patient connections?
So I think it can be both. I mean, you know, dentists are really, really great at the clinical part of it. That's what they're good at. And, you know, it's really hard for a dentist to take on the business part of it, the marketing part of it, every role. And so that's where we come in. You know, I'm an expert at looking at different things and saying, hey, this is what I think is going to work great. You know, let's work in tandem and let's make this happen. So, but I think, when we think of marketing, especially dentists who don't really have a strategy or who don't really, have someone that is kind of helping them and coaching them to be a little bit better with their marketing is, I think they look at, okay, well, I need to have a website. Yes, the website's great. Okay, well, we need to post on Facebook. Well, you do, but what's your content? What are you posting on Facebook? Yes, posting on Facebook is important, but we have to make sure that we're identifying what's working. And I love the story that you shared about the doctor in his shoes. That's part of who he is. And from the data that we gather, and Chad knows this with working with him, is that, every referral source we track very precisely and make sure that all of our campaigns are working the way that they should be. And with that being said, what we've found is that when posting on social media, the more authentic to your team and the staff and the doctor that you have, the more likes, the more shares that those posts get, because people want to see, hey, the team's, having a spa day. They ended the day early, they're having a spa day. Or, hey, the team is celebrating the doctor's birthday and they all went, mountain biking. I mean, whatever it is, it creates, kind of that personal relationship instead of just, posting a post on, hey, we got voted #1 in this magazine, which is fantastic too, but it's all these moving, working parts that work together to form kind of that cohesive marketing strategy that's so important.
And I know in those, it's interesting that you say that, like, there's different components to it. So the social media is one piece. And what's interesting is that poll said that 46% of dentists polled said that they don't use social media at all, which shocked me to pieces.
Yeah, I agree.
But I forget that the doctors that we work with are productive dentists, so they all use social media. And then the other aspect that ties into that actually kind of breaks my heart a little bit when you think about running the business. 55% of dentists polled say that they are solely responsible for marketing in their practice. And that's a big one. So how do we make that a numbers game where they're able to delegate, and in what language and in what tactic? I can see how it feels overwhelming. So so I kind of liked how, if you took that one example, that doctor that liked to say mountain bike, what's an appropriate way to show up on social media versus in the practice versus outbound marketing efforts?
Yeah. And it is very overwhelming. Marketing is very overwhelming. And I know that a lot of dentists feel that way. And so I think instead of, they almost don't know where to start. And so that's where we come in, and we can kind of look at what things are important. And I would say, if there's a dentist that is just trying to figure out, where do I start? My first recommendation would be, make sure your internal marketing is successful, meaning, do you have patients that are happy, that are referring other patients to come back? That is such a minimal cost, but yet can provide such a great reward. And then the second, social media really is such an inexpensive way to have a great marketing strategy. And it is as simple as, posting what your team does, having a few patients that want, hey, do you mind if we share some before and afters of you? Your smile looks beautiful. We've worked so hard, that sort of thing. And I think that even just starting there, it is a great way. And of course, obviously having a website, that's up to date, that's current, that can be interactive. And so there are a lot of small things that you can do when you're talking about just, moving forward within marketing, but to have the bigger picture, like Chad does. It does require some external help, and that's where we come in, and we're happy to do it. It's what we love to do.
You know, one word that we were talking about offline before we got started on the podcast was, as you've already alluded to a couple of times, is the authenticity. And I thought of a word one time that that someone brought up, and it had nothing to do with marketing. It just had to do more with character. And it's sincerity, or being sincere. And what's really cool about the Latin etymology of that word is it had to do with a pot. And when a crack would form in a pot, then it didn't have sincerity to it. And so when a pot would be without cracks, or sincere, that was when so when you look at the word, you'll look it up like under Google, and it'll show unadulterated and not falsified, clean, pure, and it goes back to the Latin roots of that, meaning without cracks. And so it's really cool to think that some people will have two identities, I'll even notice that there's some reps for companies, that they'll say, this is Jim Baker with Ivoclar. And it's just like, well, I know that, this isn't your personal account. And so now I'm already starting to go, man, are there two people to this, and why are there two people? Shouldn't it all? But see, Dennis, I don't feel like we can get away with that, like in a social media sense. We've got to be the same person. We can't pull the old tactic of saying, well, my personal life is different than my professional life, and I can keep them separate. It's like, yeah, you can, maybe. I mean, I'll give you that. Maybe you can, but like, no one wants that. They want the same person.
Yeah.
And they want that same person to be a good person. So when they see that, you're doing something cruddy, or they hear about something like that, they don't like that, even though they might think, well, you're great at giving injections, or you're great at doing class 2 composites, stuff like that. They want to know more, that this guy, likes showing off his shoes. Isn't that funny? We as dentists think that, they would care more about how we smoothen up the margin edge, for our cavo surface margin and stuff like that. And people are like, cavo surface margin, I don't even care what that means. I want to know, and does it pass the sniff test of sincerity? Are you without cracks?
Yes. And I love that you talk about sincerity, because one of the things that I've encouraged the doctors that I've worked with before in the past is, I think sometimes a patient will be there, it's a new patient, we're going to introduce ourselves. So they walk into a room, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so, I've been doing this for 15 years and that, but what it does is it kind of creates this barrier of, I'm the doctor, you're the patient. Yeah. So I've helped coach my doctors to come in and say, hey, I'm Chad. I'm in dentistry because I love to help people. How can I help you today? Right. It automatically brings that patient to your level. It's no longer, I'm a doctor, you're a patient. We're now equals. And hey, let's address this problem together, and then you can pull from that, as you call, backpack of information, hey, so I've been doing this for 15 years and here's what I've seen be successful. Or here's what I've seen work for other patients. But I think when we kind of go in and talk about sincerity, I think that that's important to make sure that the patients feel that, it's not us above them. It's that we're equals. We're in this healthcare journey together. I'm here. Yes, I have the education and the knowledge to help you, but, I need you to communicate with me, and you're equally important in this role too.
Mm-hmm. So, Sarah, something else that we like asking on the podcast that, people are always checking into what books people are reading. So tell me, like, what's been your book or author and stuff like that coming, share with us your library of thought.
Well, I'm a big Brene Brown fan. I don't know how many people are familiar with her, but she is amazing. Obviously, I really like talking, and I implement authenticity within kind of my career and what I do, but I also try and do that within my life as well. And a lot of her books are talking about, being authentic to who you are. And when you're kind of authentic to yourself, it allows you to have connections, and it allows you to grow and develop. And so one of my favorite books from her was Gifts of Imperfection. And that was probably the first book I read. And I really feel like it changed my life. Just, we are amazing people. And, us being in dentistry, I love dentistry. It's part of who I am. I've been in it for 20 years. And, I love to share kind of my knowledge and stuff, but I also love the connection that comes from it, the connection with, clients and doctors and patients and teams. And so for me, that's a big part of my life.
Very cool.
So Sara, how do you coax out, say, I mean, not every doctor is a Bruce or a Chad or, someone who just is really confident in sharing themselves. So they might be confident clinically, but maybe not in sharing their authentic selves. How do you kind of coax those doctors out of their shell a little bit and encourage them to make those connections?
Yeah, I think it's just very simple. It's a simple, phrase of, hey, do you have any questions for me? Do you know who I am? Do you, let me tell you a little bit about what I like to do. Just some of those little key pieces when you're in a conversation with a patient. I have worked with doctors that are more private in their, they don't like to be on social media. They don't like that sort of thing, but a lot of times their teams do. And a lot of times we can kind of promote them and market them based on a lot of different things that they do within the practice. And so that's worked really well. But I think if it's just opening up the conversation. A lot of times our patients will do a lot of the talking. They don't have an opportunity to do talking a lot of times, because we're usually performing procedures. But I think just allowing them to kind of know who we are by just simple little questions. I think they say that you should ask or listen 80% of the time and speak 20% of the time or something like that. And so,
if only.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, just getting to know them a little bit and you really can form a connection with anybody, as long as we're listening. So.
Yeah, as an extrovert, I want my listeners to know, and my mom who's listening to this podcast will vouch for this, that I'm a loud person and I talk a lot, and she'll be most impressed on these podcasts that I'm a good listener during them. This is like my best behavior of etiquette when I'm, talking and sharing with everyone. So Mom, I'm hoping I'm making you being a good 80% listener. Yes, my mom listens to these.
Listens. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
I know. Hi, Mom.
Never met Chad's mom. I would love that. Oh my gosh. I don't think my parents listen to this. I better tell them, hey, you better start listening.
I know. I don't make her, but she saw somewhere either on Facebook or I mean, she knew I was doing these, that she's like, I'm going to start listening to these. I think she's signed up for the emails.
That's fantastic. Oh, I think I'll just
a fan.
them in.
Yeah, she's a fan.
So Sara, it's not just about hobbies then. So when you talk authenticity, it's not just that they like rock climbing or they play guitar or I don't know, study speaking Mandarin Chinese. It goes deeper than that. What other ways can docs be authentic with patients, and how does that show up in marketing?
Well, like I kind of said to Chad earlier, it kind of goes back to, being on people's same level. We all got into healthcare and dentistry to help people. And so I think focusing on that, hey, I'm here to help you. And, now we have studies, and Michelle, who works for PDA as well, she has done fantastic research on, oral systemic health and how really our health is, tied into our oral health as well. And it's important that, we are healthcare providers in the dental industry. It's not just about our mouth. It is all connected. And so I think as far as marketing goes, even using things like that, hey, your oral health is important. And, here are the things that we do in our practice to help our patients have healthier lives. Even something like that, you're still forming a connection. We're addressing what their needs are. But, it doesn't always have to be, hey, I love, to go running. This is me,
What about,
which I do, by the way.
What about if someone were shy or introverted, because they're not exactly the same, but let's just say that quintessential person that either, has walls up or but doesn't necessarily want those walls up. There are a couple different ways that they could go about sharing that I thought of. Number one, if you had a picture on the wall and your team for new patients went around and showed off, what you were doing this last month or weekend or year or whatever, or a family picture, that you wouldn't necessarily have to be the one sharing it. Those could also be put on a screensaver that could scroll through. So you put it on the patient's view of the screensaver. Those things could scroll through. Or, for example, if the hygienist or assistant was introducing you as the dentist, and then you gave them permission to do so, because again, this is going to be for someone that knows that this is not their strong suit of building relationships, or they seem to be quiet or shy, or they seem to be overly focused on the patient, so much so that they never share any of their own information, and they want to change that the assistant or hygienist could, if given permission, even hand a picture to the patient, while they're sitting there and saying, hey, I just thought I'd show you. Now, this is going to make Dr. Brown a little, embarrassed or whatever, but they were just showing me these family pictures here. Look at this. They were, they got these family pictures done just this last summer, and he just showed me. So I thought I'd share these with you. And he might not have just shown them to you, but he just showed me these, and these are so cute. This is his little daughter here, and she's 3 years old and stuff like that. And that might be a way to help bridge that connection, is using the threefold group, as opposed to just, well, you want to know something about me? I have a daughter and she's 3 years old. Do you want to know her name? Someone might not be extroverted enough to care to do that. But if you set it up, you could have the assistant or hygienist kind of peak that conversation. What's your thoughts on that, Sara?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I think it's us thinking outside the box with marketing, for sure. And I think that's why I really like to push with the marketing and social media, things that aren't your typical everyday things that happen in the practice, because then it can strike up that conversation. And we've seen many times in practices, a patient will walk in and say, oh my gosh, I saw that, Jane at your front desk, she won a pie eating contest, and there was pictures of her all about it. It strikes up conversation, and it just makes it different. It makes you stand out, which is incredibly important to marketing.
Rich Constantine, the 90 million, 100 million YouTube video hit dentist. You know who I'm talking about. It seems like the ladies love him, if half of anything, not just because he's good looking, and I'll admit he's good looking, but well, I'm just saying it's not just that, but it's also because when he comes out, he gives the shy persona, but he's also letting you into his world. You can tell at first he's like, oh, I'm putting this on and no one's around and I'm a little shy about this.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And then you realize, it's not like he's like, hey, I'm a professional dancer, watch this. He's kind of like, I don't know if this will, get any views, but watch this, and it's really cute in that sense, because, he's letting you into his introverted, shy world. And that was still giving authenticity, letting the patient see who he is, in spite of the fact that it made him uncomfortable, and how much more at home personally he was uncomfortable by 100 million people around the world watching that. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
So he tapped into that quiet energy, and it still resonated very well with people. So we're not asking people to be like, hey, Rich, why don't you be, loud and obnoxious like Chad and stuff like that. It's like, no, that's not going to work for him, and it shouldn't. Right.
And that's exactly, what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's about being who you are, and tapping into that. And I love that example. It's a perfect example of that, because I think, and when we're talking about what's the meaning of authenticity, it's real. That's kind of, the verb to describe it is being real. And if you're being real is, being at home, being an introvert, and, maybe kind of popping out there from time to time, then that's what's going to connect with people. The rest of us are out at Babe's Chicken having a great time posting all over social media, right?
Well, I think with the pictures too, my dentist from I guess 8 until I was 30 something, I can't even remember, but he was my dentist forever. Adored him. He kept my mouth cavity free. He was fantastic, and he was extremely shy. So he was very, very quiet with me. And if I ran into him in public, typically at the gym, I would be like, hi, and he was like, oh, hi, shh, and he'd go away. But what something that he did to speak to the pictures idea, Chad, that you had, he had 2 things in his practice. One, his favorite color was clearly purple. He had a lot of local art, blown glass, like Chihuly style glass, and pictures that had some element of purple in them. It was very beautiful. So you walked in just kind of feeling great as soon as you came in. Appointments were never late, ever. I was always seated on time, had a hygienist the same for forever. But there were photos in each op, and they were complimentary in that they had very rich, vibrant colors, and they were of people of, obviously it wasn't United States. They were obviously in some different country. Gorgeous pictures with like different, like tapestry. Somebody was wearing like that type of patterned thick outfits on. And so one day I asked about it. I said, I really like this art. And the hygienist, my longtime hygienist, Kathy, she said, oh, well, Dr. B, he loves going and doing dental mission trips, and he's a photographer also. So it kind of combines his two passions here. And I didn't know that. Had I not asked, I would have just thought it was a neat piece of art or photograph of somebody. So it took me asking, and I would, of course, coach to like say, share that and let us know, because I already loved Dr. B growing up as him being my dentist, but knowing that additional angle to it, how much he loved helping people and using his craft to help people, it just made me love him even more. And that was a good example of him being authentic, but not in your face,
Yes.
loud.
And that is such a good marketing strategy as well, to be involved in the community, doing community events. There are so many different, things that you can get involved in and get your team involved in that can create kind of who you are. You're giving back, you're, doing good. But yet, it's not a full blown marketing strategy, right? But yet it all coincides. So I love that.
During an office tour, then if you were to coach that team, you'd say, be proactive. So this is a tip for the listeners, be proactive as a team in endorsing your doctor, or even just the whole culture, in showing off some of the stuff that he or she has done. And it doesn't even have to be artwork that they've done. It could be artwork they've selected. We have a Des Moines Art Festival here in Des Moines, of all places, right? So, and I buy stuff there, and then I talk about it. And so I'll walk people around, or I'll have my team walk around and say, oh yeah, he bought this. This is an Asian artwork with plum blossoms on it, and he bought this at the Des Moines Art Festival, and that artist is from the LA area, I think, and she comes each year. And so it's just fun, because Des Moines people go to the annual Des Moines Art Festival, and they'll be like, oh, no kidding, I don't know if I've ever seen that. And we'll walk around. So a lot of my artwork in my office is mine, and then I initial it and stuff like that too, so that way people can talk about it if they want. I've chosen out the books in the waiting room. So the coffee book tables are of places that I've been, so there's one on Oregon, and there's one on Alaska, and there's one on, Maine and stuff like that. So it's just fun place. And then when people say, man, I really like that book out there, what I'm doing is I'm setting up the opportunity that I can say, oh yeah, my family went there last summer. And actually the author of that book signed it on the inside because he was there when I bought it. And it was really cool to have him talk about those pictures. So I'm not really even talking much about myself. I'm using it to bridge in something else and say, have you ever been to Maine? And I actually had a patient say, no, but we're going to go there this coming summer. And I go, listen, I've actually bought 3 books that are up on my shelf. I can see them right now. The Coastal Maine, Acadia, and Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire by Foders. And so I have those 3 books up there. And I said, let me loan those to you. And, when you come back for your fillings, you will come back, won't you? No. But I then give them those 3 books and they use those to help make their vacation better. So what's cool is I was intertwining with their lives. So they, they can be like, that dentist gave us that book, and he told us to stop at that ice cream stand, and that may, like that can make or break a trip. It can be those little fun things like that. So just, I don't know, just thinking out loud of ideas.
No, and you're exactly right. It's about standing out. It's about creating a different experience for our patients. And I think you're exactly right. It's those little things that make a big difference, because now when they come, they come in, they wait in the, the patient area, and now there's a connection there. They're not just sitting there waiting for their appointment.
That's right.
Staring at their phone. There's a connection, and that's, you've hit it right on the head. That's exactly what marketing is.
Yeah. Well, Reagan, do you want to finish? Yeah, hey, quit trying to distract us there. If you're just listening, she's on video trying to get our attention. Reagan, you have a closing question for Sara that we should definitely ask. And I think I know the answer, but I don't know.
She knows what it is.
I know. All right, we're not even going to ask. What is it?
Okay, bacon. I mean, come on.
That's what I thought.
Ding,
like
ding, ding.
all day, every day. I mean, I love bacon. Who doesn't? But I do love me some eggs. But if I had to choose, we're going bacon.
It's the reason why we pose those two against each other, because it actually really is a tough choice.
Yeah.
It's funny how people go eggs, no question, but I like bacon.
Yeah.
Well, I really like bacon. Wow. Can I choose bacon and eggs? So it's kind of funny. Well, to all our listeners, thanks so much for joining us on Everyday Practices. Hopefully you can carry some of these ideas in a tangible way to your own practice to make your day better. Have a good one.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with Everyday Practices.